The night everything changed began with laughter. Not my laughter. Theirs. My phone buzzed non-stop on the nightstand beside my bed, lighting the dark room like small flashes of lightning. I ignored it at first. Messages after midnight usually meant gossip, jokes, or random group chats. But the buzzing didn't stop. Curiosity finally won. I picked up the phone and opened the first message. A meme. My face. My body. Edited cruelly. Stretched. Distorted. Mocked. The caption read, "When your sister eats like she's feeding a village." My stomach tightened. Then I noticed the account that posted it. My sister. Liana. Within minutes, thousands of laughing reactions flooded the post. People shared it, tagged friends, and added even crueler comments. Another meme appeared. Then another. Each one uglier than the last. Each one louder. Each one posted by someone who was supposed to love me. That night I cried harder than I ever had in my life. But what my sister didn't know, what none of those laughing strangers knew, was that humiliation can sometimes plant the seeds of transformation. Before we continue, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy powerful stories like this. Because what happened next, even I never saw coming. Before I tell you the rest of the story, let me introduce myself. My name is Tierney Trump. I'm 20-6 years old, and until that night, my life had been remarkably quiet. I grew up in a small town where everyone knew everyone else's business. My parents owned a modest grocery shop near the center of town. It wasn't glamorous work, but it was honest. My father woke up before sunrise every day to receive deliveries. My mother handled the cash register with the patience of someone who had spent decades greeting neighbors by name. And then there was my sister, Liana. Liana was everything I wasn't. Beautiful. Confident. Magnetic. People loved her instantly. Teachers praised her. Friends surrounded her. Even strangers noticed her when she walked into a room. Growing up, I was always the quieter sister. The heavier sister. The invisible sister. For years, Liana's jokes about my weight seemed harmless. She was funny. People laughed. And I laughed too. Until one day, the joke became me. The memes she posted spread across our town faster than wildfire. Suddenly people who had never spoken to me knew my name. Not because of who I was, but because of what I looked like. And that humiliation was about to change my life forever. After the memes went viral, I disappeared. Not dramatically. Not publicly. I simply stopped showing up. No social media. No parties. No family gatherings. People assumed I was hiding. Maybe they imagined me crying in my room while the internet laughed at me. But the truth was something very different. I was rebuilding. At first it didn't look like much. Morning walks around the quiet streets before sunrise. Cooking simple meals instead of ordering fast food. Drinking water instead of soda. Tiny decisions. Tiny changes. But transformation rarely begins with grand gestures. It begins with quiet choices. The memes that once humiliated me slowly became something else. Fuel. Every laugh became motivation. Every cruel comment became a reminder. I wasn't changing to prove them wrong. I was changing to prove something to myself. That I was stronger than the version of me they believed existed. And slowly, day by day, I began to feel different. Not just physically. Mentally. Emotionally. For the first time in my life, I was taking control of my own story. Pain has a strange way of forcing clarity. It strips away illusions. It exposes the truth about the people around you. And it asks a simple question. Will this destroy you? Or transform you? For me, the answer appeared one morning during a run. 6 weeks earlier I could barely jog for 5 minutes. Now I was moving steadily down the quiet road outside town while the sun climbed slowly above the trees. My lungs burned. My legs ached. But something inside me felt powerful. Because every step meant progress. Every drop of sweat meant change. That morning I stopped beside a small lake near the park and looked at my reflection in the water. I didn't see the girl from the memes. I saw someone fighting back. And in that moment I made a promise to myself. I would never again allow someone else to define my worth. Not my sister. Not strangers online. Not anyone. The journey ahead was still long. But the direction had finally changed. Transformation doesn't happen overnight. Despite what motivational videos and social media posts suggest. It begins quietly. Almost invisibly. One healthier meal. One longer walk. One decision to try again after a difficult day. My mornings developed a rhythm. Wake up early. Exercise. Help my parents at the grocery store. Spend evenings learning about nutrition and fitness. At first people didn't notice anything. Then they began asking small questions. Have you lost weight? Did you change your diet? But the biggest change wasn't physical. It was confidence. For the first time in my life I felt proud of the effort I was making. The effort no one else could see. 6 months passed like that. Quietly. Then one evening something unexpected appeared in my inbox. A message. From a photographer. And the question he asked next would change everything? 6 months passed quietly. By then my routine had become part of my life. Morning runs. Helping my parents in the grocery shop. Evenings spent learning about nutrition, confidence, and the strange psychology of transformation. I had lost weight. But something more important had changed. I had found discipline. One evening I was closing the store when my phone buzzed. Another message. For a second my heart tightened, remembering the memes. But this notification looked different. It wasn't from someone in town. It was from a name I didn't recognize. Daniel Ortega. Photographer. I hesitated before opening it. His message was short. Hi Tieni. I've been following your transformation story quietly. I think you might be ready for something bigger. I frowned slightly. Bigger? He sent another message. I work with a magazine that focuses on real stories about self-confidence and body positivity. I stared at the screen. A magazine? The idea felt unreal. Just months earlier I had been hiding from the internet. Now someone from the media was reaching out. Then came the final message. Would you consider doing a photo shoot? For several seconds I simply stood there, reading the message again. Because sometimes life changes direction so suddenly. You almost miss the moment it happens. At first, I thought the message was a prank. After everything that had happened, trusting strangers on the internet didn't come easily. But Daniel's profile looked legitimate. Professional photos. Magazine credits. Real work. He explained everything during a short video call the next day. The magazine was preparing a special issue focused on body confidence and personal transformation. Not celebrities. Not influencers. Just real women with real stories. And somehow, my story had caught their attention. You've documented your journey honestly, he said. That's rare. I felt my face warm slightly. I'm not a model. Daniel smiled. That's exactly why we're interested. He paused before continuing. The world is tired of perfection. Then he asked the question that changed everything. Would you come to the studio next month? I stared at the screen, unsure how to answer. The shy girl who once cried over cruel memes wanted to say no. But another part of me, the part that had been growing stronger every day, felt something different. Curiosity. Opportunity. Possibility. And slowly, I nodded. Yes. The weeks before the photo shoot felt surreal. Every morning I woke up wondering if I had made a mistake. Modeling belonged to another world. A world of perfect faces and flawless bodies. Not someone like me. Even my parents were surprised when I told them. A magazine, my mother repeated. Yes. My father simply smiled. If they asked you, he said gently, there must be a reason. But doubt is stubborn. It whispers late at night when the world is quiet. What if the photos looked terrible? What if people laughed again? What if this entire opportunity was another cruel joke waiting to happen? Those thoughts followed me all the way to the studio the day of the shoot. But sometimes courage isn't the absence of fear. It's simply the decision to walk through the door anyway. The photography studio smelled faintly of makeup powder and bright stage lights. Large white backdrops hung from the ceiling. Cameras stood on tall tripods like silent observers waiting for something important to happen. For a moment I froze near the entrance. This world felt completely unfamiliar. Assistants moved quickly between tables of clothing and lighting equipment. Someone adjusted reflectors. Another person prepared the camera lenses. Daniel walked over and greeted me warmly. You made it, he said. I almost didn't. He laughed softly. That's normal. A stylist guided me toward a chair while explaining the plan for the shoot. For the first time in my life, people weren't studying my body to judge it. They were studying it to celebrate it. To highlight strength, confidence, authenticity. And slowly, the nervous knot in my chest began to loosen. Maybe. Just maybe. I belonged there. The lights turned on. Bright. Warm. Almost blinding. I stepped onto the white backdrop, suddenly aware of every movement in my body. Daniel stood behind the camera adjusting the lens. Relax, he said gently. Take a deep breath. I did. The room grew quiet. Then the camera clicked. Once. Twice. 3 times. Good, Daniel said. Now look up. I lifted my chin slightly. Another flash. For a moment I forgot about the internet. The memes. The laughter. I wasn't the girl people mocked anymore. I was simply a woman standing in front of a camera, telling her story without words. Daniel lowered the camera and smiled. You belong here, he said. And for the first time in my life, I believed it. When the photo shoot ended, I expected the room to relax. The assistants began packing equipment. The makeup artist wiped brushes and organized palettes. Daniel scrolled through the photos on his camera screen. I stepped aside near the wall, unsure what to do next. This entire day already felt like more than I deserved. Then the editor walked in. She had been observing quietly during the shoot, occasionally whispering to Daniel while reviewing the monitor. Now she approached me with a thoughtful expression. Tieni, she said gently. Yes? She held a tablet displaying several of the photos. Images of me standing confidently under the studio lights. Images of someone I barely recognized. She studied them for a moment before speaking. These photos are powerful. I felt my cheeks warm. Thank you. But she wasn't finished. She turned the tablet toward Daniel. Which one is your favorite? Daniel pointed to one of the images. The one where I was standing tall, smiling softly, looking directly at the camera. The editor nodded slowly. Then she looked back at me. We'd like to use this one. For the cover. For a moment, I thought I had misheard her. The cover? She smiled. Yes. And suddenly the quiet girl who had once cried over internet memes was about to appear on the front page of a magazine. For weeks, I told no one. Not my parents. Not my friends. And certainly not my sister. The magazine team asked me to keep the cover confidential until release day. So I waited. Patiently. Sometimes patience can feel powerful. Other times it feels like carrying a beautiful secret that you're afraid to drop. Every day the editor sent updates. Design drafts. Headline options. Layout previews. Seeing my face on the digital mock-up of the cover felt surreal. The headline read, "Strength After Shame, Tienny's Journey to Confidence." Each time I saw it, I remembered the memes. The laughter. The humiliation. And the quiet promise I made to myself beside that lake months earlier. I wouldn't let anyone define my worth again. But I also knew something else. The internet had once laughed at me. Soon the internet would see something very different. The magazine released on a Tuesday morning. I didn't sleep the night before. My phone rested beside my bed like a ticking clock. At exactly 9 a.m., the digital edition went live. 10 minutes later my phone exploded with notifications. Messages. Comments. Shares. Friends from high school. Former classmates. Even people I barely knew. All saying the same thing. Is this you? I opened the magazine website with shaking hands. And there it was. My face. My smile. My story. Displayed proudly across the front page. The same internet that once shared cruel memes about me was now sharing the cover. But one notification stood out above all the others. A message from my sister. Liana. The same sister who had posted the memes. The message was short. Only 3 words. Can we talk? 5 minutes later my phone rang. Liana's name appeared on the screen. For a moment, I considered ignoring it. But curiosity won. I answered. Hello? The voice on the other end sounded unfamiliar. Not confident. Not playful. Not proud. It was trembling. Tienny? Yes. Silence lingered for several seconds. Then I heard something unexpected. Crying. My sister was crying. I saw the magazine, she said quietly. I didn't respond. I didn't think things would go this far, she continued. Her words sounded fragile. Almost desperate. But the truth was simple. Things had already gone that far the night she posted the memes. The internet had simply finished the story. Liana struggled to speak between quiet breaths. I thought it was just a joke, she whispered. The word joke hung in the air like something fragile. Because jokes aren't supposed to destroy people. They aren't supposed to make someone hide from the world. They aren't supposed to leave scars. I didn't realize how much it hurt you, she said. For a moment, I closed my eyes. Images flashed through my mind. The memes. The comments. The night I cried alone in my room. You didn't ask, I replied quietly. Liana began crying harder. I'm sorry. The apology sounded genuine. But apologies don't erase memories. They simply arrive after the damage is done. For a long moment neither of us spoke. Then I said something that surprised even me. We'll talk later. And I ended the call. Because forgiveness, like transformation, Takes time. After the call ended, I sat quietly on the edge of my bed. The room felt different. Not heavier like the night of the memes. Strangely lighter. My phone continued buzzing with notifications, but I ignored them for a while. Instead, I stared out the window at the street below. 6 months earlier, that same view had felt like a prison. I had watched the world moving outside while I hid inside, embarrassed by strangers' laughter. Now the same world seemed to be knocking on my door again. Another message appeared from Liana. This time it was longer. I never meant to hurt you this much. I read the message twice. Then I placed the phone back on the table. Because intentions don't erase consequences. What had started as a joke had traveled across thousands of screens. It had humiliated me publicly. But now that same internet was rewriting the story. And Liana was finally realizing something she had never considered before. Cruelty spreads quickly. But so does truth. By midday, the internet had done something fascinating. People began comparing the memes with the magazine cover. Side by side. One image showed the distorted photos my sister posted months earlier. The other showed the magazine cover. Confident. Elegant. Powerful. The contrast was impossible to ignore. Comments flooded the posts. Some people were angry. Others were supportive. Many simply expressed disbelief. How could someone mock their own sister like that? What a transformation. She looks incredible. For the first time since the memes appeared, the internet wasn't laughing at me. It was defending me. And suddenly the same audience that once found the jokes amusing began questioning the person who created them. My sister. The internet can be ruthless. But sometimes, it can also be unexpectedly fair. By the afternoon, the magazine article had been shared thousands of times. People weren't just talking about the photos. They were reading the story. The editor had included the truth about the memes. Not as revenge, but as context. The article described humiliation, resilience, and transformation. And readers connected with it. Messages poured into my inbox. Women sharing their own stories. People thanking me for speaking honestly. Some admitted they had laughed at the memes months earlier. Now they were apologizing. It was strange. The internet that once mocked me had become a place of encouragement. But what fascinated people most was the contrast. Cruelty versus growth. Mockery versus confidence. And in that comparison, the truth spoke louder than anything I could have said myself. By evening, the internet had chosen a side. And it wasn't the side of the memes. People began reposting the magazine cover with captions like, "Never underestimate someone who refuses to quit." Or, "The best revenge is self-respect." Others shared the old memes again, but this time not to laugh. To criticize. Suddenly the posts that once humiliated me became evidence of something else entirely. Bullying. Cruelty. Embarrassment. And the person facing that criticism now was Liana. I didn't celebrate that moment. Because revenge had never been my goal. But watching the truth unfold felt strangely peaceful. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just fair. My parents discovered the magazine that evening. A customer brought a copy into the grocery store. My mother called me immediately. "Tieni," she said breathlessly, "is this really you?" I laughed softly. "Yes." There was a long pause on the line. Then I heard something unexpected. Crying. But this time it wasn't sadness. My mother was proud. "We always knew you were strong," she said. My father took the phone next. His voice was calm as always. "You didn't just change your body," he said. "You changed your life." That moment meant more to me than any magazine cover. Because long before the internet noticed my transformation, my parents had believed in me. And sometimes, that belief is the strongest foundation a person can have. 2 days after the magazine was released, there was a knock on my door. It was late afternoon, the kind of quiet hour when sunlight stretches across the floor and the world feels slower. I opened the door. And there she was. Liana. For a moment I barely recognized her. My sister had always carried herself with effortless confidence. But the woman standing in front of me looked smaller somehow. Quieter. Her eyes were red, as if she hadn't slept. "Hi," she said softly. I stepped aside and let her in. Neither of us spoke at first. The silence between us felt heavier than any argument we had ever had. Finally she looked up. "I'm sorry." The words were barely louder than a whisper. "I didn't realize what I was doing to you." I watched her carefully. For months I had imagined this moment. What I would say. How angry I would sound. But standing there, I felt something unexpected. Not anger. Clarity. Liana sat on the edge of the couch, twisting her hands nervously. "I thought people would laugh for a day," she said. "Maybe 2. Her voice trembled slightly. "I never imagined it would spread the way it did. But that was the problem with the internet. Once something is released into it, no one controls where it goes." I sat across from her quietly. "For you it was a joke," I said. "For me it was the worst night of my life." She nodded slowly. "I know." Then she looked up again. "But seeing that magazine?" She paused. "You look stronger than I've ever seen you." I smiled slightly. "Because I am." For the first time since she arrived, Liana managed a small smile too. Not the confident smile she once wore, but something more honest. For a moment we simply sat there. 2 sisters who had shared the same childhood, the same house, the same parents. And yet somehow ended up on opposite sides of a story neither of us expected. "I don't expect forgiveness," Liana said quietly. "But I wanted you to hear me say I'm sorry." I studied her face. Then I realized something important. Holding on to anger would only keep me tied to the past. And I had already moved forward. "You hurt me," I said honestly. She nodded. "I know. But what happened after that changed my life." I stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. "I don't need revenge." I turned back toward her. "Because I already found something better. Peace." The magazine cover opened doors I never imagined. Interviews. Speaking invitations. Collaborations with organizations promoting body confidence and self-respect. For the first time in my life, my voice mattered to people. Not because of how I looked, but because of what I had survived. And slowly, my story began helping others. Women who had been bullied. Teenagers struggling with confidence. People who believed they were invisible. Each message I received reminded me of something powerful. Pain can destroy you. Or it can become the foundation of something stronger. The difference lies in what you choose to do next. Months later, I walked past a bookstore window and saw the magazine cover displayed on the front stand. My face stared back at me from the glass. Confident. Strong. Unrecognizable from the girl who cried over cruel memes. I paused for a moment, remembering that night. The buzzing phone. The laughter. The humiliation. But now those memories felt distant. Because life had moved forward. The girl who once hid from the internet had become someone people looked up to. And the sister who once mocked me? She learned something too. Sometimes the people you laugh at are the ones who rise the highest. And when they do, They don't need to shout. Because their success already speaks loud enough for everyone to hear.